Hey again, my Gleneagles family, this is Victor, one of your trainers, and we have the last segment for the shoulder. I'm going to call this one shoulder 3. It's going to involve a little bit more shoulder flexion, a little more abduction, different ranges of motions that we have not targeted yet as far as going to the shoulder. So still targeting with AIS, or the active isolated stretching, is what we're doing primarily. Hope you guys have been getting some benefit out of the videos previously. Remember, 2-second method. About 1 pound of pressure per movement, okay? We've been averaging somewhere around 10 repetitions for 1 set on each. Some of you have probably figured it's working for you and decided to do an extra additional set, which is absolutely no problem. So we're gonna go forward. We're gonna start off with shoulder flexion. I'm gonna show you a few different variations of this motion, 3 exactly. And I'm gonna show you from a standing, lying position as well. And for those of you that can't stand and prefer not to do it lying, you can also do these seated, okay? So we're going to move forward into shoulder flexion, standing still, nice upright position. You're going to keep your palm towards your body, okay? And you're going to go ahead and elevate that shoulder upwards. When you come up top, I want you to pause for those 2 seconds and bring it back down. Focus on the anterior muscles here. You're going to feel these muscles tightening up just a little bit. That's the contraction that you're getting there, okay? That's all the anterior muscles here. You're going to feel your deltoids, what we call them. And as you're coming back, you'll start noticing, you'll start getting a little bit further. You may feel the posterior muscles of the deltoids themselves actually feeling a little bit of a stretch. I'm going to come on up. Don't forget to breathe on these. Hold, 1 and 2. Now, I'll show you from the side real quick. I want you to pay attention to my body, all right? As I'm elevating the arm, I want to make sure that my ribs aren't flaring forward and out. I want to keep my body as upright and erect as possible and trying to really focus on just the shoulder joint itself, okay? Because that's what we're doing here. You may feel a little bit of motion happening through the scapula, the shoulder blade, as we've talked about before, as it tucks back. For some of you where there's more restriction, you might even feel a bit of pops happening through the upper back into your thoracic spine, with a bias, a slight bit of extension there. But once again, we don't want to overly extend, because then we'll notice that we'll start compensating into the back, and now we're getting away from that shoulder itself. And it'll appear as you're getting more stretch through the shoulder, but you're really not. So that's the shoulder flexion. Palm towards the body. Now what we're going to do is palm back, okay? We're actually internally rotating the shoulder. You probably remember that from the internal-external rotation that we had done previously on shoulder 2. So I'm rotating, palm facing back. I'm going to elevate upwards. I'll hold for 1 and 2. Back down, all right? That's the anterior view. And then elevate up. 1 and 2, okay? So we're targeting the same muscle groups, just from different angles, so you're going to feel a slightly different stretch with those, okay? Next one is going to be internal rotation, so we're going to actually bring the palm away from the body, nice and tall. I'm going to elevate upwards. You might notice on this one you won't get as much range of motion, okay? So I'm going to hold that up there for those 2 seconds, get to your end range, 1 and 2. With each stretch you do, you may feel that you're getting a little bit more motion, okay? But remember, this isn't just about stretching, all right? The key word is motion. We're trying to get that active range of motion. We're able to get a little more of a contractile effect of those muscles through greater ranges of motion. So you can ultimately use those ranges in things that you do on the daily basis, okay? So I'll show that one from the side, our lateral view. We're going to come here, palm away, and I'm elevating upwards. Now, remember with any of these, if there's any pain or discomfort, discontinue it, okay? Or just try to stay away from going into those further ranges of motions that you have not gained yet, okay? That last variation is, we like to call it a sticky one, all right? It's usually the hardest one to do. Remember, we've talked about with internal rotation, there's a lot of limitation there on the regular basis, okay? So you may feel some discomfort with those. If there is, you know, you make the ultimate decision whether it's worth doing or not. Like I said, you can back off, go a little less range of motion, and then maybe work your way up to it, okay? So that's the 3 different variations as far as shoulder flexion goes. This is shoulder flexion, okay? Now, for some of you, I understand that there might be pain just elevating that arm upwards. So you can use something like a dowel or a broomstick. But remember, we still want to keep this as an active motion. So you still need to try to lift the arm up, but we're going to do it with the assistance of the other arm. So I'm going to bring one hand here. I'm going to hold here, and I'm going to try to make sure that I'm maintaining that same angle, same range of motion. I don't want you to start deviating outwards, okay? So really pay attention to what you're doing. So I'll hold this lightly. I don't want you to death grip this. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to drive upwards and back into flexion. And with the other hand, you can kind of press in upward, backward fashion, okay? There's one motion. I'm going to come back up, Now this will make it a little bit easier for those of you that have some discomfort in your shoulder, maybe some weaknesses, maybe you have a previous tear that's limiting your motion in this degree. So explore with the stick, see if that helps you out at all, alrighty? And then for those of you that need to do it seated, nothing changes. It's the same exact thing, just sitting down, okay? We really want to pay attention to the rest of our body. So if I'm sitting and I'm doing these, I really need to make sure that I'm not compensating, pressing my feet into the ground or overextending into my back and all that other stuff. So we're going to move forward into the lying positions. Because I know for some of you that this is a little more comfortable, just understand when you're doing the lying position, you're going to get the help of gravity at a certain point. So, you know, I'm not saying that this isn't a good way of doing it. It's just a little bit easier, but it might be better for some of you, okay? So I'm just going to go through it really quickly. I'm going to lie down. Bend the knees for me, okay? So that we make sure we're not getting any hyperextension in the lower back. This is perfectly fine right here. I'm going to elevate up, my palm towards me. And I can actually even assist a little bit, let's say, to get a little further back. So right about here, as you can see, there's not a lot of active component, right? But I'm still working, but just not to the same degree because the weight of my arm is just dropping back. But that's all right. So then I'll rotate my grip. I'm going to come back. I'm going to hold it. I'll take that 1 and 2. Good. And then I could even rotate that slight internal rotation. 1 and 2. Okay? So as we've been doing with all these other exercises, previously, I'm going to have you do 10 repetitions of each on both sides, all right, bilaterally. Doesn't have to be 10. You can say, hey, look, if I feel I'm getting a benefit at 8, then leave it at 8, alrighty? So the next one we're going to move into is a abduction action, okay, or they call it sideward elevation. So just realized I totally skipped something, but that's all right. We'll go back to that towards the end. All right, so we're going to go into the abduction. And that's just a fancy way of saying lifting the arm to the side, right? That sideward elevation as I stated. So standing in place, only 2 variations on this one. We're going to do the palm facing forward, and then we'll do it with the palm facing back, okay? So I'll start with the palm facing forward. I'm going to go ahead. And if you notice, I keep my arm across like so. It gets me to focus on a little bit of the contractile effect of my abdominals that I'm trying to gain here, okay? I want to make sure I'm not slouching and being relaxed. I want to keep myself in a good active position all the way through, okay? So I'm going to elevate upwards, my thumbs up, hold for 2, and back down. Okay, we'll do this again. And from the side, nice and tall. Now with this one, I want you to pay attention to a few things. You want to make sure your neck is not getting into this, okay? So there really shouldn't be any active elevation of the shoulder blade, right? If you look back to the previous videos that we had done on the scapula itself, you'd understand that sometimes with the elevation or lifting of the arm, sometimes there's going to be a slight degree of that elevation of the scapula, but we also don't want to find it where we're pinching the neck or bringing the shoulders to the ears, okay? So I want you to really isolate it through the shoulder joint and try to keep the shoulder blade out of it as best as you can. Understand that there is a slight degree of motion happening with that upward rotation of the scapula, but don't let it become scapular driven, where if I did it with just my shoulder, this would be with the scapula involved. We want to try to stay away from that, all right? Because that's just another compensation that can occur. So I'll do it one more time with the palm facing towards you guys or away. And I'm going to elevate up. And I'll hold. That's my motion right there, okay? Now, the next one, a little more challenging, okay? Typically they'll do this to see if there's any impingement in the shoulder, and for many of you there will be. So obviously if there's impingement, there might be a slight degree of discomfort. You can work through it to a slight degree, but don't force it. So if you start hitting that roadblock, back off a little bit, and then work your way into it, right, with that 2-second stretch. So, nice and tall, I'm rotated, palms back, pinky leads, gonna elevate up. As you can see, I don't have as much motion here, okay? I'll go through 3 reps. You'll start noticing some breathing, as I start getting a little more involved and more active with those muscles, my nervous system will allow me to adapt. And I'll find that I can get a little bit greater range of motion as I go into this. Okay, don't expect this to be overhead in the first set, maybe even your first session. As you start regularly doing these, you might start noticing that, hey, actually I got a lot more range of motion, right? And don't be surprised if there's differences from one side to the other. My left side has far greater motion than my right. I've broken this clavicle, so there's a lot of limitations as far as certain motions and different degrees of motions that work for me. There are different muscles involved, by the way, with this sideward elevation. I really cover that. As you're coming outwards, understand that the great lat muscles of the back are also going to be stretched here. Some of the smaller muscles, the teres major, will be involved. You'll actually even have parts of the upper pectoral being stretched in this motion, okay? So understand that there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of contraction and a lot of stretching that's happening here. So explore, feel for it. Don't worry about the anatomical terminology and jargon of muscles. Just feel what your body is telling you, all right? Learn to differentiate discomfort, learn to differentiate what angles work for you, so that you can ultimately feel your body out a little better, okay? Remember, it doesn't have to be just here. I could even work forward a little bit. Play around with it. See what works for you, okay? And this same thing can be done seated. I can do it lying down. Just understand the same thing lying down. I won't have as much of the active component, so it's going to be a little easier, as you can see. I'm going to have a lot more range of motion here, even if I was rotated inwards with the palm back, but that's okay. That's, once again, just another way of doing it. It's not wrong, it's just different, and it may work for you. You may find that, hey, that feels pretty good, and ultimately allows the opportunity to do a little better when you're standing down the road, okay? Now, we're going to move on to the stretch that I should have started with. I guess I got overly excited. We're going to do it's a variation of a tricep stretch, but it does involve a slight degree of flexion through the shoulder. Now that's important, and that probably should have been the one I started with, as it's a good warm-up for that joint itself, then leading into the flexion, okay? So I know some of you might skim through the video, you'll be able to see this. If not, you're not going to get hurt doing it out of order. It's not a big deal, okay? Just as Aaron Mattis has in his literature, in his book, there's a certain criteria or protocol that they go by, and this exercise I'm about to show usually leads. So what I'm going to have you do is, I'll show this from behind, and then we'll do it from the side, anterior view. I'm going to go ahead and put my rope right here, my palm of my hand, and I'm going to grab the rope. And I know many of you may not have a rope, so I'll show you another variation up against the wall. So what I'll do here is I'm going to still be active, right? So if I have my arm extended, I'm going to imagine I'm flexing my arm, right? It's almost like you're doing a bicep curl away. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull down into the stretch. And you'll feel in the back of the arm. I'll extend a little bit and back down. Pull at the end, hold it, 1, 2, extend, flex the elbow, back, down, 1 and 2, okay? You may feel the shoulder blade get involved with that one as well, all right? Try to control it, limit it. Don't just pack that shoulder blade back. I mean, you could, but it's a different stretch. So I'll show from the side, down here, grabbing here. I'm going to go ahead, extend, bend, pull down with the back arm. There's a stretch. Now, I'll show it if the shoulder blade is involved. I'm here, back a little more. You'll see the shoulder blades almost kind of retracting back a little bit. You're going to feel a lot more of a stretch there through the lats. There's more of a pull happening here, even maybe in the posterior part of the shoulder. But once again, that's a different stretch. Not wrong, just different. You can explore both of them, okay? Now, if I don't have a rope, what I'm going to do is I'll post up, use a wall, and same thing. I'm going to go ahead, bend, active component, which is back, maintain that flexion, the bend at the elbow, and then you can kind of lead in with your body. Now, that one is going to be a little similar to that second one I just showed you from the lateral view. It's not going to bias just the tricep, because as I push into the wall, it's going to cause my shoulder blade to kind of pack back a little bit. So everything that's attached there, you might even feel it through the serratus up in here. it's just a stretch, okay? So, show the other side, boom, make sure you're in a nice stable position. I can even assist with my other hand, pushing down, which allows me to flex the elbow a little more. And there's a stretch right there, okay? I'll show again here. Bend, here's my assistance, and back down, okay? 2-second stretches, remember those, okay? That's important. I don't want you to just go into a stretch for a second and come out of it. You really want to get into it, stay active through it, and hold it, okay? Just for that short period of time to reap the benefits of this. Okay, so I'm going to bring this forward again just so you can see it. So it's shoulder 3. I started you guys off with flexion. So as you saw there, it was flexion, palm inward, palm back, palm away. We went into that sideward elevation with the abduction, palm forward and palm back. And then we did the shoulder tricep stretch, right? Assisted with the rope and then also against the wall, alrighty? Hope you guys get some benefit. Hope you've enjoyed these shoulder videos. Do them. I mean, hey, look, what do you got to lose? I mean, this is important, all right? Your shoulders are just a critical joint. It allows us to do so much, alrighty? And we want to be able to move arms freely, you know, pain-free. So hope you all are having a safe time, and hopefully we're almost out of this, okay? Thank you once again. You all take care. Bye-bye.